Anyone who knows me knows my favorite time of year right now, okay? It's Mel's top 5 picks in his first mock draft of the year. We got a whole lot more of these coming. He's got Caleb Williams going to the Bears, Commanders taking Jaden Daniels at number 2, and the Patriots get Drake May at number 3. The Cardinals getting Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4, and Brock Bowers goes to the Chargers at 5. I can't wait to see how this all shakes out. But if the Bears do go quarterback at the top of the draft, their newest addition will be working alongside newly hired offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. Waldron, of course, comes over to Chicago after 3 seasons in Seattle, where he helped revamp the offense after Russell Wilson was traded to Denver. So the perfect duo to break down all things Bears and the top of the draft is Mel Kiper Jr. and Dan Orlovsky are back with us. Mel, we can't wait to get into all of this. And let's start with the Caleb Williams at number 1 overall to the Bears. What are you thinking there?
Tough call, Laura. It really is. I went back and forth on this. Obviously, keeping that pick and taking Caleb, or trading the pick and keeping Justin Fields. And I went back and forth. I'm thinking Caleb Williams. If it's a push situation, if you're even, if you can't make up your mind, you reset the clock. And I think with Caleb, he didn't have that great finish to the year. The Notre Dame game started him to look not phenomenal. He threw those 3 picks against the Fighting Irish that Saturday night. But really, throughout his career, it's been Saturday at the Improv. And in 2022, he looked Patrick Mahomes-like. This year, he got off to that phenomenal start. Then the Notre Dame game started that, like say, spiral. It wasn't bad. It's just he wasn't phenomenal. When you put it in perspective, he still wasn't throwing interceptions, and he was still completing a pretty high percentage of his passes in most games, except for a couple. And overall, his numbers, I think 93 touchdowns, 10 picks over the last 2 years. That's rushing and passing combined is pretty doggone good. I think the Bears ultimately, after it's all said and done, obviously take him, trade Justin Fields, get that 2 back you lost in the Montez Sweat trade. If you keep the pick and you say, okay, we're going to take him, fine. If you trade the pick, you can get a bonanza in return and move forward with Justin. The players want Justin Fields. We'll see if the head coach and the GM, Ryan Poles, want to go forward with Justin Fields. I'm thinking right now, to me, Caleb's the guy, and then you move on and you make the trade and you see what you can get in return.
Yeah, Mel, ever since the season's ended, I've kind of started to lean that way, that Chicago was going to trade him and go get Caleb Williams. Shane Waldron getting hired as their offensive coordinator. I was with him with the Rams. He got to watch the development of a young Jared Goff. He was there to watch how Matt LaFleur, when he was there with Jared, developed him and helped him. And Zach Taylor developed him when it comes to that young quarterback. So I do like the fact that he's watched that. All the things I just said about Philadelphia's offense and kind of modern NFL football. He loves the tight ends. He loves formations and a lot of those different formational and personnel packages. I think the number 1 challenge is going to be getting him to develop within the rhythm and timing of an offense. It is going to be necessary for every quarterback to live in that world. Playmaking, not a problem. Getting him to that is going to be the biggest development of his young career.
Yeah, we sit here January 23rd saying this might be the decision we predict. I think this is going to change so many times in the lead up to the draft. It's going to continue to be fascinating to talk about. Let's go to the decision at number 2. Mel, in your mock, of course, the Commanders in need of a quarterback. Likely the choice is between LSU's Jaden Daniels and North Carolina's Drake May if we do see Caleb Williams off the board. So why, Mel, did you lean toward the Heisman winner there?
Rode the wave of momentum, Laura, and I think with Jaden Daniels, he's exactly what you need in today's NFL. And right now, you're talking about even the Bears with new coaches. They have to evaluate. They have to try to figure this out. They haven't figured it out yet. So we're basically guessing and trying to go with what you hear may end up and having foresight and trying to project, right? Because they don't know. They're still going to have a lot of work to do between now and late April to make that decision. Do we go with Fields? Or do we audibilize and take Caleb Williams and go forward with him? In Jaden Daniels' case, the dual threat ability, the Randall Cunningham, Lamar Jackson type skill set is what it really is the fear factor quarterback that coordinators, defensive coordinators hate to have to deal with. So for me, Drake did not pressure number 1 Caleb Williams because he had a year that wasn't like 2022. He lost his top receiver, Josh Downs, lost his coordinator, and had some games, the Virginia game, the NC State game, the Clemson game, where if you saw those games, you're scratching your head saying, how could you miss those throws, Drake? But he did. Now, if you want to make excuses for him, you can, for the reasons I gave. So for that, when you put it all together, Jaden Daniels was phenomenal in 2 years. Doesn't throw picks, yet is aggressive with his arm, aggressive with his legs, and has that balance of not turning it over, yet taking shots down the field.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating, the conversation around these two guys. I really do. And obviously, it's mid-January. I haven't dove into studying these guys, Mel, but I think the thing that I like and was surprised about with Jaden Daniels is his pure stroke. I love comps. Throw-wise, he reminds me a lot of CJ when it comes to just the pure throwing motion. He's got this kind of slot out and up, slot fade. His body is aligned. I love that fundamental of it. This reminds me a lot of CJ. Now watch the throwing motion. CJ's just so compact and tight. So is Jaden Daniels. Left arm attached to that chest. That's phenomenal when it comes to just the pure stroke of the ball. Last year we loved CJ Stroud's ball placement. It doesn't get better than that when it comes to that slot fade. I mean, you cannot throw the football better. That was a little surprising as I started to dive into Jaden's tape. He's going to wow athletically. I also think once you watch him more and more, he's going to wow you throwing the ball when it comes to ball placement. Drake May, he's going to remind a lot of people, certainly me, of Big Ben. Patient playmaking. Just staring to the bottom of the screen, nothing there. Okay, coming to the top of the screen, nothing there. He's only getting two-man rushed. So it's patient in the pocket, comes back to that number one, not there. All right, dude, go be a big playmaker. You're 6'4", 230 pounds. Escape from that defensive lineman, eyes downfield, and two hands on the ball. Eyes downfield, two hands on the ball are huge when you're a dynamic playmaker. Reset, no one's open. Now everyone has tracked you. Can you go do something above the X's and O's? Keeps his eyes downfield. Now watch this throw up over essentially some of those trailing underneath hidden defenders perfectly in stride. That's real. You know, and I think that when it comes to Jaden, we're going to have plenty of time to find the flaws or warts of these guys and pick them apart. He's going to surprise people just with his pure throwing talent. And I think Drake, people are going to be shocked by how well he moves for such a big guy and say, well, Josh Allen's and those type of physical talents.
That was a whole lot of fun. Thanks, Mel, for being with us. We're going to see a whole lot more of you. By the way, this would be the fourth time ever that three quarterbacks went in the top three picks. It happened in 2021 with Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and Trey Lance. So here's the top five picks once again on Mel Kiper's mock draft. He's got three quarterbacks in the first three picks. So we want to ask him some questions. We're going to bring him back in for Ask Mel here, which means everybody gets to ask a question and he gets to give an answer. Mina, we start with you. What's your question for Ask Mel?
Yeah, Mel, one of the sort of themes of this season we've talked about a lot on this show is how every team after the position has been devalued for a while needs an off-ball linebacker. You certainly see that with your Baltimore Ravens, San Francisco 49ers. And yet, they're really, really hard to find, especially with guys coming out of college. Is there anyone, as you look across the landscape, that you think might go in the first round who plays that position?
Don't think first round. I mean, it was a great question. Trenton Simpson, the Ravens drafted out of Clemson last year. They have high hopes for him. He looked good in that Steeler game at the end of the year. And you think about Edgerrin Cooper from Texas A&M. You think about 6'3" with the length, disrupt throwing lanes, that height for an off-ball linebacker, very important. You can cause interceptions, bat down passes. To me, Edgerrin Cooper, with the ability to get after the quarterback, he had 8 sacks, led him in tackles, had 17 tackles for loss. He's really good. And Jeremiah Trotter Jr., you know his father, what a great player he was. Go to the Notre Dame game, guys. Look at the Notre Dame game and a lot of other games, but the Notre Dame game in particular. He's intercepting pass, returned it for a touchdown. He's all over the field. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. could be a good second or third round pick.
Mel, I'm gonna go ahead and get the Dallas Cowboy question out of the way. You got a tackle mock, and it has to be because of Tyron Smith and obviously the age and the wear and tear on his body. Is that the most important position for Dallas, as we saw a defense that needs a lot of help as well?
It does. A wide receiver could help Swagoo, but I think when you look at Jordan Morgan from Arizona, a left tackle, who really impressed me the way he came back from an ACL in mid-November the previous year. 9 months, guys. He was back. He rehabbed quickly, got back on the field for Jed Fish. He did a great job with that Arizona Wildcat team, winning 10 games. A left tackle who can come in and be a factor. And really, in another year even after that, in his second year, he'll be 2 years removed, which is when you're really back. But Jordan Morgan, to me, played like a first-round pick. I think he's going to get better from what you saw on tape this year, as I said, coming off that ACL injury from 2022.
Mel, there's teams late teens, early 20s, like Indy, Tampa Bay, maybe Arizona, Buffalo, Kansas City, that are going to need a wide receiver. Is there a guy that's going to be drafted in that time frame that he will be better than where he's going to be drafted slot-wise?
I'll tell you, Dano, I like the two Texas kids. I put Adonai Mitchell, who was at Georgia, came to Texas, 6'4", 198-pounder, had 2 touchdown receptions early on and an upset over Alabama at Tuscaloosa. Go to the Kansas State, Oklahoma State game. He was uncoverable. He's got that great catch radius. As I said, 6'4", with really good hands. I think he's a good one. I think when you look at his teammate, Xavier Worthy, who in space can really make people miss. He's got punt return skills. So I think both of those Longhorns, Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy, in the late first round, at worst early second round. And we could have maybe 6, 7 wide receivers go in round 2. And those are two kids that have an awful lot of ability.